We may have missed Paris-Roubaix last Sunday, but that does not mean that the Spring Classics are finished. Coming up next week, we have Flèche-Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but first up, on Sunday, it's the Amstel Gold.
Which is often seen as part of the Ardennes week, even though it doesn't take place in the Ardennes, but rather in the Netherlands, in the Limburg province. It suits the same riders though, and we'll be taking you through some of the key players, the route and the history of the race very shortly.
We will indeed. First up though, you're going to want to know where you can watch it over on GCN Plus, of course. Now, unfortunately, there are quite a few territory restrictions on this race, but we will have both the men's and women's races live in all of Europe and the Asia-Pacific region, excluding China, New Zealand and Australia.
For those of you who are in one of the territories included, we'll also have pre and post-race shows for you for both races. Happy days. Guests will be Danny Rowe, Adam Blythe and Brad Wiggins.
Right then. A little bit of history on the race to start with. So the Amstel Gold began back in 1966, which makes it far younger, of course, than most of the other spring classics. Now, it was the dream of Dutch sports promoters Ton Vissers and Herman Krot, who basically wanted a race in Holland to rival the monuments that were happening in Flanders and in Italy. Now, the first edition was held on the 30th of April in 1966, which is Queen's Day, a Dutch national holiday basically celebrating the monarchy there.
However, it was made incredibly complicated because of the fact it was on Queen's Day. With the start location revised twice, such was the upheaval in fact, that permission was only eventually granted by the authorities if the organisers promised never to hold the race on Queen's Day again.
And we believe they never have.
No.
302 Ks, that was the longest ever edition, and it was won by the Frenchman Jean Stablinski. Now, you would be mistaken for thinking that Amstel is the longest running sponsor of a pro bike race, at least I was. 55 years is how long the Dutch company has backed this race, over half a century. However, the longest running sponsor title actually goes to the French race Paris-Camembert, which has been backed by French cheesemaker Le Petit, we believe, since 1943, which is quite remarkable and finally gives you an explanation as to why we are currently sipping on an Amstel beer and munching away on some Camembert.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers.
Lovely as well. Shame we didn't do a tour of Turkey preview, really.
We won't be previewing the Bayern Rundfahrt.
No,
and that's not only because that race doesn't exist anymore. Anyway.
I'll quickly move on from that, I think. Talk about previous winners. So, the Dutchman Jan Raas has won the most Amstel Golds with 5, Philippe Gilbert winning 4 times. No other rider, I'm just trying to get my camera down, no other rider, even Merckx surprisingly, has won the race more than twice. The women's race has a more recent history. It took place for the first time in 2001, but only ran initially for 3 editions.
Yep, Debbie Mansveld of the Netherlands took that inaugural edition, and then Nicole Cook took victory in 2003 before the race took a 13-year break. It restarted in 2017, and the last 3 editions were taken by Van der Breggen, Chantal van den Broek-Black and Kasia Nieuwiadoma.
There have actually been very few pro races in the Netherlands since the coronavirus pandemic hit just over a year ago. In fact, the Healthy Aging Tour last month was the first for almost a year. Because of the ongoing stringent measures in place in the Netherlands, organisers have been forced to change the route completely. And so this year, the riders will be doing laps.
Simple, but then in true Dutch fashion, it's also a little bit complicated, isn't it? So the majority of the men's and women's race will take place on that same closed circuit from start to finish. For the women, it genuinely is quite simple. 7 laps of a 16.9 kilometre loop, adding up to 119 Ks in total. Now that lap includes the following climbs. First up, it's the Gulgenberg.
I think you got that right.
I'm pretty sure I haven't, but we'll go with that. Regardless, it's 1.4 Ks at 3.8% average gradient. Then the Bemelenberg, 0.7 Ks at 5.6%. And finally, the Coburg. Or is it Cowberg?
Cowberg, I'd say Cowberg.
I can never remember. Anyway, that's 900 metres long at an average gradient of 6%. The women's race then finishes after an ascent of the Cowberg, using that steep ramp up and out of Valkenberg, of course, before the final flat 2.6K run to the line.
The men's race uses that exact same circuit for the first 12 laps of their race. However, they will complete a different final lap, which omits the Cowberg in the run into the line. Instead, they will complete a shorter 15.9 kilometre variation of that original circuit.
Why? We've got absolutely no idea, have we? It's bizarre, but regardless, after the Bemmelerberg, the race cuts out the Kouwberg from that loop and instead uses the newly named Mathieu van der Poel Alley, which is street, we believe, in Dutch, as the final drag, a 1.7k climb, if you can call it that, at 1.7% gradient.
We say drag because really it's no more than a false flat, to be honest, but still could provide a final place for attacks on the run-in with just over 1.5 kilometres to the finish from the top. It's also an extremely narrow stretch of road, more akin to a bike path really, before swinging left onto the final flat run into the line, that final kilometre to be precise. Now this is the finish we saw back in the 2019 edition of Amstel Gold, where Mathieu van der Poel took that dramatic victory.
I don't remember it really.
Well, it was all hanging in the balance in the final
No, I
kilometres.
do. That one will never go away from my memory. Now, all those circuits for the men will add up to a 218k race, so that's some 47k's less than the previous edition. However, there is still going to be 3,100 metres of climbing packed into that. So that's 14.2 metres of elevation gain per kilometre compared to 13.1 back in 2019. So this is definitely still a race that really suits the climbers and the punchers.
As we said, the circuit is a closed one with access restricted around the course and also inside that loop. So please don't try to attend at the roadside and stick to definitely watching this one on GCN+.
Right then. Let's move on to the riders taking part this year. Now, the men's race, defending champion effectively is Mathieu van der Poel because it didn't take place last year. And I don't think, as I said, any of us are ever going to forget the manner in which he won that race when it last took place. However, he is not going to be on the start line this year, despite having that road named after him on the course.
Yeah, there'll be no Gilbert either, arguably the king of the Kouwberg. He took his World Championships victory here in 2012 and, as we said earlier, has won this race 4 times, but is currently taking a break to freshen up both mentally and physically after overtraining this winter, although he will be present at both Flèche-Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
10 years after he won the triple, I believe. Can't believe it's that long ago. Now, there are only 3 past winners in the absence of Van der Poel on the provisional start list, at least. Roman Kreuziger is one of those. How long ago was it when he won it?
That was a long time ago now.
Must have been a long time ago. Michael Velgren and Michał Kwiatkowski are the other 2, who both have 1 win and 1 second place to their names over the years.
Away from previous winners, Julian Alaphilippe is potentially the rider most under pressure coming into Amstel after a Spring Classics campaign that left the world champion without a one-day win. Alaphilippe's only victory so far this season was at stage 2 of Tirreno Adriatico. Will we see the Frenchman find a new level of form coming into the Ardennes Classics, or will the fatigue from the start of this year's racing put paid to his chances?
I think he's going to be all right.
I think so
Hedging
too.
my bets there, obviously. Meanwhile, Bora Hansgrohe are a team who are looking to reverse their fortune this classic season after Sagan failed to basically reach the race fitness that we know and love from him following that COVID-19 positive. In fact, their best results in one-day races this year are Sagan's 4th place at Milano-San Remo and Pascal Ackermann's 3rd place at De Panne. And the German team will pin their hopes on Max Schachmann, you'd have thought, who of course won Paris-Nice in quite dramatic style just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it was an incredible performance. Perhaps the strongest team, though, on the start line are Ineos Grenadiers. Carapaz, Dunbar, Pidcock, De Plus, Michał Kwiatkowski amongst their provisional starting lineup, which is pretty. It's a seriously strong team, isn't it?
It's a serious lineup, that is.
Yeah, 2 Grand Tour winners plus a past winner of the race in Kwiatkowski. So, British fans, I think, though, will perhaps be most interested to see how Pidcock fares. He has obviously shown incredible promise throughout his first experience of the Cobble Classics. Amstel arguably suits his characteristics more, I think, especially in light of this year's reduced distance. Although Milan-San Remo actually didn't seem to faze him, did it?
It did fare quite well at the 300k race, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Either way, Ineos are a squad with options, and if they choose to attack, which I believe they will, looking at that squad, they could create some really exciting racing.
Will be interesting to see how they ride as a team, won't it? However, all fans' eyes are going to be on Wout van Aert, who I guess many will consider as the outright favourite for this race on Sunday. Amstel Gold has been his only attempt at any of the Ardennes races in the past, although his previous attempt only yielded 59th place in 2019, or 58th it might have been, I think. The race was added to his programme this year at the last minute, though, you've got to say, along with Brabant's Appeal, in light of the late cancellation of Paris-Roubaix. I think Amstel Gold will really suit Wout van Aert.
Is there a race that doesn't suit him though, Dan?
Well, that's a very good point.
Whether the absence of long-time rival Mathieu van der Poel provides a blessing to Van Aert though is a question that remains to be seen. It'll also be interesting to see how Primož Roglič and Van Aert perform alongside each other. Both have serious chances of winning for Jumbo-Visma, and together will prove a handful to manage for the rest of the peloton.
It will. Yeah, Roglič is, of course, coming off the back of a strong showing of form at both Paris-Nice, which he probably should have won, and the Tour of the Basque Country, which he did win in spectacular fashion, actually, after that last Stage 6 overhaul of Brandon McNulty. Vingegaard, I think is how you pronounce it, he's also going to be at Amstel Gold after that second place to his teammate at the Tour of the Basque Country. Sam Oomen and Antoine Tolhoek also back up that blisteringly strong squad for Jumbo-Visma. You know, in the past, for many, many years when I first started watching Amstel, the entire responsibility of controlling the race rested on the shoulders of Rabobank, who are, of course, now Jumbo-Visma. That did seem to change at a point, I guess, as more and more riders and more teams tried to focus on winning that race. But with the squad that they've got here on Sunday, you wonder if it might be just like the olden days again.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Other notable names to look out for include Jakob Fuglsang, not a previous winner, but he has won Liège, the crown.
Well, he was away, wasn't he, with Alaphilippe on that day that Van der Poel won?
Yeah, he was. He was, and it didn't work out for him. He hasn't got the winner at Amstel Gold yet, but he has won Liège, potentially, you know, the queen of the Ardennes, one of the biggest races you can win in cycling. And he does perform well at these races, doesn't he? His best result is third at Amstel Gold, so
we'll wait and see. He's not been at his best so far, in my mind, this season, has he? Meanwhile, Movistar, we think, will look to Enric Mas. Rojas is also there, Verona and Mühlberger, all potentially in for a strong result at this Dutch Classic. Surprisingly, though, Alejandro Valverde is not going to be part of the squad. He started this race 13 times in his career, but he's never won it. One of the few races that Valverde hasn't won. He's had 2 second places, a third, a fourth, a fifth and a 6th place position, but that all-important win has surprisingly eluded him. However, that doesn't seem to have enticed him to the start this year because he is instead at the Vuelta Valenciana. And I think that Movistar are going to miss his presence at the race this year.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't decided to take the start line.
I am.
But obviously he's going for Flèche and Liège.
Maybe there's some huge start money in Valenciana.
They could be that too, Dad. Michael Matthews, though, is another potential winner who seems to look comfortable back at his old team, Bike Exchange. He last cracked the podium back in 2015 with a 3rd place, and the Australian will be hoping for some of those past legs. He missed a big result in the Cobbled Classics. However, Matthews has spoken to the media about how that disappointment will motivate him further come the Ardennes.
He did look good. He was one of the few people that was able to follow Philippe Gilbert up the Cowberg one year, wasn't he? Meanwhile, potential wildcards to look out for include Romain Bardet, now of Team DSM, of course. He's a previous top 10 finisher at this classic, alongside his teammate, Tish Benoot, who's always favoured the Cobbled Classics over the Ardennes, but can definitely challenge come Sunday on this type of parcours. I mean, just look at the way he won Strade Bianche. I know it was a few years ago now, but he's more than capable on this type of hilly terrain, isn't he? Greg Van Avermaet is also a man to always look out for, including at this race, especially in light of the fact that the closing kilometres of the race are a little bit easier with that omission of the Cowberg.
Mark Hirschi is a rider we would have normally put as a clear favourite for this race, and to be honest, he is. However, the start to his season has been a late one, and despite race starts at Catalunya and the Basque Country, we haven't seen him anywhere near the scintillating form that saw him take a stage of the Tour, a podium at the World Championships and win Flèche Wallonne last year. If he is firing on all cylinders though, he will be a force to be reckoned with.
I think he will be. I know he's been quiet at those first 2 races, but of course in the Basque Country he's working for Pogačar and McNulty. I think he's quietly building up. Watch out for Mark Hirschi. Meanwhile, my drunk bet is Alexander Kamp, who rides for Trek Segafredo. The Danish rider earned his contract at that World Tour squad by building a serious reputation for high power on shorter climbs, which is exactly what you need at Amstel Gold, isn't it? Now, after a rocky start with the team last year, he now appears to be riding very consistently. On the right day, he could definitely challenge on the shorter, punchy course that we're going to see them tackle on Sunday.
With that slightly easier run into the line, though, we may potentially see a reduced group going for the sprint. Bernard Hinault actually won from a group of 60 back in 1981, one of only 4 occasions when the race was contested for the win in a group numbering over 15 riders. If this is the case, there are a number of riders who could take the victory. Sonny Colbrelli from Bahrain Victorious being one, Jasper Stuyven being another. The Belgian seems to have grown in confidence off the back of his win.
I think I would, yeah, if I'd won Milan Sanremo.
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, Magnus Kort, Luka Mesgek, Daryl Impey and Matteo Trentin are other riders who'll look to make the most of their fast finish on Sunday.
Well, we might as well cover our backs with a whole heap of more names, just in case, because we didn't mention Jasper Stuyven in the Milan Sanremo preview show.
Oh.
So, Quinn Simmons, Chavez, Guillaume Martin, Higuita, Barguil. Well, we've already mentioned Barguil, haven't we? Dylan Teuns, Xander Murisa, Godu, Lutsenko. Tim Wellens you could throw into the mix as well.
Looking good on the cobbles.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? So hopefully one of those names is going to take the win. Although, I'll tell you now, my prediction for the win we haven't mentioned yet.
Okay, go on then.
No, predictions come later.
Oh, okay, we'll wait
Come
for
on.
that.
Right, let's move on to the women's race now.
On to women's then. Okay, so unlike the men's race, which surprisingly only has one Dutchman on any spots of the podium in the last 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, that's a true fact with Van der Poel's win last year.
Have you double checked that?
I've double checked it, so we could double check it again, but I'm pretty
Triple
confident.
check.
Yeah, triple check it. But yeah, interesting fact, isn't it? But the women's race has been actually dominated by the Dutch. So they have 4 of the past 6 winners coming from the Netherlands. In fact, from spots 1 to 3 in all editions, the Dutch have taken 61% of those spots. So
you've been doing some stat and fact checking.
I've done a little bit.
Pro cycling stats?
Yep.
Calculator?
Yep.
Now, of those Dutch women, Annemiek van Vleuten and Marianne Vos will arguably be the ones with the greatest motivation, you'd have thought, to win here. With a second and a third in previous editions, Van Vleuten has failed so far to win her home classic. Currently, though, on fantastic form, isn't she? She won Dwars-door-Vlaanderen on the Wednesday and Flanders on the following Sunday. So it's quite hard to look past the 38-year-old for the win here. Vos, surprisingly, has also never won her home classic. In fact, third place is the best result she's achieved over the 6 editions, but she also was winning recently at Ghent-Wevelgem and showed very well at Strade Bianca and the Trofeo Alfredo Binder, so she's definitely got the form to be a serious contender. However, although she hasn't won Amstel, she did win that World Championships, which had a similar course, didn't it, in Valkenberg and up the Kouwberg to finish. So, well, you can never count Vos out, but she's proven in the past that she can win on this type of course multiple times.
Yes, true. And staying with the Dutch, and of course there are plenty more names we can consider and talent, because, well, we haven't even talked about world champion
Anna
van der Breggen
consideration of the world champion. Anna van der Breggen.
She has won this race already, winning solo by close to a minute over then teammate Lizzie Dagenham. But that win is by far her best result, with a 13th and a 38th place finish, her other previous results.
And this, of course, is her last opportunity, retiring at the end of the year, as is her teammate Chantal van den Broek-Black, who is a former winner from the Netherlands. She'll be on the start line and last took the race, or only took the race, in fact, in 2018. And now another Dutch woman to watch out for who came second to Black in that 2018 edition is the World Elite Cyclocross champion, Lucinda Brandt. And our Trek Segafredo rider saw her chances fall apart in her last attempt here after crashing out of the breakaway in the 2019 edition of the race.
But who is going to challenge the Dutch? Katia Nieuwedome perhaps leads the charge. She is the previous winner, of course, with last year's race being cancelled, but has also visited the podium in 2017 when she finished third. So far this season, the Polish rider has been posting consistent results with 3 top 10 results in the 4 World Tour races she has started. However, is yet to post a win despite a second place at Dwars-door-Vlaanderen.
Out-sprinted by a 1 kilometre sprint with Annemiek van Vleuten. Now, Nieuwedome's teammates at Canyon SRAM will provide good support if she's on form to challenge on Sunday. And it could also be said that they have the potential to take the victory themselves. Of those, Hannah Barnes will be one to watch. However, she could potentially be held back by the fact that this is her first ever start at the Amstel Gold Race. Tiffany Cromwell is another rider who's shown brilliant performances already this year in support of Nieuwedome and seems to have stepped up a level again this season.
Yeah, she does. Lizzie Dagenham is another who'll be looking to finally take a win after a second place in 2017. Another of those non-Dutch riders to infiltrate the podium at Amstel, although it's her teammate Elisa Longo Borghini who has been on better form so far this year. Meanwhile, Australian Amanda Spratt has been decent in the past here with a 3rd and 11th place to her name.
Although I reckon it's her teammate, Grace Brown, who stands a fantastic chance for Team Bike Exchange on Sunday, particularly given her recent form in the one-day races. Moving on, or kind of moving back really to SD Works, because Ashley Moolman-Pasio, the South African, is another contender for Sunday. She's actually been top 20 in all of the previous 3 races that she's done here. Climber from South Africa should prefer, you'd have thought, the relentless nature of this year's edition. So I think she could improve on our previous best, which was 9th back in 2017.
If the race comes down to a group sprint, which seems unlikely given the course and the final ascent of the Cauberg, then Corinne Riviera could be the one to watch out for. Although that would be quite the performance, as this will just be her 2nd race of the season.
I think it's Riviera. Riviera is where you want to be.
I do.
Still
Sorry, Corinne.
Meanwhile, Cecily Uttrup Ludwig is yet another rider who's been knocking on the door of a big win for quite some time now. But I think it's her teammate Marta Cavalli who could potentially upset the favourites on Sunday.
Okay.
Right then, Connor, it's time to make your predictions. Have you got yours in your head?
I have got mine in my head, yeah. I mean, people will probably roll their eyes because they'll probably just think I'm naming the race favourites, but I think Van Aert's going to take the victory for the men's race. I know he hasn't won here before. His best result was 58th place, like we said, but I think these races suit him more than the cobbles, to be honest. I think so. I mean, look how well he's climbing. He obviously has a massive sprint on him.
Now, look how rubbish he is over the cobbles.
Well, he's not rubbish, but I just think he can sprint amazingly and he can climb amazingly. And I think that suits him more in a race like Amstel, because I think he's just got that punch over the climbers, which would give him the victory.
Yeah. Right, on the women's side?
Women's side, I'm going to go for Van Vleuten, because she's just...
You're just naming the favourites.
I am, but it's my prediction, so...
Right then, Van Aert and Van Vleuten.
She's on amazing form, so I just can't see her being beaten.
If you're going for them, I better go a bit left field.
Okay,
and go for some hipster predictions, as some people would like to say. In the men's, the winner is going to be Michael Gogol.
Okay.
Team Quebecer Assos.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
He was great, wasn't he, at Strade Bianche? And as I said before, Marta Cavalli is going to win the women's race.
Okay.
You heard it here first and last. Anyway, let's now hear some more predictions from some of the other presenters in the GCN lineup.
In the men's, I'm going to go for Primoz Roglic. No, I'm not. It's too easy. Go heart over head, Pidcock. And in the women's, I'm going to go 60-kilometre solo breakaway from Annemiek van Vleuten. There you go.
Now, my prediction has got to be Wout van Aert.
Hi guys, I'm not going to be original for my Amstel Gold Race pronostic this year. I would say both world champions will win this year. I mean Julian Alaphilippe for the men's race and Anna van der Breggen for the women's one.
Before the Brabante tips, my favorite was Primoz Roglic, but after I just say Pidcock. For the female race, I feel patriotic, so I say Elisa Longo Borghini.
For the women's, I'm going to go for Van Vleuten. She's in top form. She's always thereabout, and she's always a big favourite. So, if I was a betting man, those are the two I put money on.
My favourite for Amstel Gold Race women is Kaja Niewiadoma.
Hi everyone, it's Chile Day here in Spain, and my prediction for this Amstel Gold Race is for women's is Annemiek van Vleuten and men's is Alejandro Valverde.
My predictions are Julian Alaphilippe for the men and Kasia Niewiadoma for the women.
My prediction for the men's race is Greg van Avermaet, and for the women's race is Lizzie Deignan. What do you think? Doesn't have a clue.
Right then, those are some other predictions. We better wrap things up now because Connor is absolutely desperate to finish off his share of the Camembert, which I will admit is only about a third of the entire wheel of cheese. But nevertheless, he's chomping at the bit anyway.
I've been looking at it the whole time we've been presented, and I'm getting so hungry.
I have noticed.
It's a lovely piece of cheese.
Feel free to tuck it away in just a few moments' time. I hope you've enjoyed watching the preview. Don't forget to leave us your predictions in the comments section down below. And don't forget, if you're in the right territory, make sure you join us on Sunday for both the men's and the women's race, which in this instance comes first, unlike the other previous Flanders Classics races. We'll see you then. Bye for now.